One night, one bed. That's all it was supposed to be, until a child came with his eyes. Rain smacked the diner windows like nature had a grudge. Heavy, loud, unforgiving. Inside, the warm light hummed above rows of empty booths, flickering slightly as the storm raged on. The red neon open 24/7 sign buzzed at the corner of the glass, casting a soft crimson glow on Liana Brooks's tired face. She wiped the last table down for the third time, not because it was dirty, but because she didn't want to clock out yet. Home meant silence. Silence meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering how she'd ended up working late on a Thursday, still chasing tips and counting coins before sunrise. The door jingled. She looked up from the rag in her hand. A man stepped in, tall, soaked, but composed, like the storm hadn't touched him, even though he was dripping from collar to cuff. He moved with a quiet kind of power. Black wool coat, leather shoes with a splash of city mud, dark brown hair slicked back, but not styled, face sharp but calm, cold coffee eyes. He walked straight to the last booth by the window and sat without a word. Liana reached behind the counter, grabbed a menu and approached. "Rough night?" she asked. He glanced up. Black coffee. No sugar. Coming right up. No thank you. No small talk. But something in his tone felt more exhausted than rude. She walked back behind the counter, poured the coffee and brought it to him. "Anything else?" she offered gently. He paused, looking at her for the first time. Really looking. Just peace and quiet, if it's on the menu. She let out a small laugh, surprised by her own smile. "You're lucky. That's our Wednesday night special." He smiled once, a small lift of the corner of his mouth, then went silent again. She walked away, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. There was something about him, like he was used to making hard decisions, like he'd left something important behind, something he hadn't forgiven himself for. He stayed there quietly, sipping his coffee, staring into the window like he was trying to find something in the dark. She worked around him, cleaned, checked the register, glanced at her phone, her ride cancelled. Great. She sighed and checked the bus app. Every route was shut down due to flooding. Her shoulders slumped. She glanced back at the man. Still there, still quiet. Finally, he stood and walked to the counter, pulled $100 from his wallet and slid it toward her. For the coffee and the quiet. "Sir, this is too much. I can't accept. You can..." He turned toward the door and paused as he saw her looking at her phone again. Her lips were tight, frustrated. "Where do you stay?" he asked. Tone direct, but not unkind. She blinked, caught off guard. "East Side. Too far to walk. Come with me." She stared. "I'll make sure you're safe. You have my word." She hesitated. "I don't know you." "I get that." He pulled out his wallet again, not to flash it, but to show her a card. Langdon Enterprises. Stuart Langdon, CEO. She blinked hard. She'd heard that name, seen it on billboards, news articles. One of the youngest billionaires in the country, but he didn't act like it. No arrogance, no charm performance, just a quiet man in a storm. "You're serious?" she asked, almost whispering. "I wouldn't offer if I wasn't." She stared at him for a long moment. Her gut didn't scream danger, just strange, timing. But something in his eyes felt honest. He didn't ask for anything in return, just offered shelter. "Okay," she finally said. He nodded once, no smile this time, just quiet understanding. They rode in silence in the back of a black SUV. Rain pounded the windows like a drumline. She sat on one side, he sat on the other. Neither spoke. The car pulled up to the Langford Hotel, one of the most exclusive hotels in the city. "You own this?" she asked softly. He nodded. Among other things. Inside, staff rushed up, but he waved them off. "Power outage hit the upper floors," someone said. "Only ground-level suites have heat right now. One's fine," he replied. He led her into a suite, warm, clean, elegant, but not showy. One bed. Liana glanced at it. "I'll sleep on the couch," he said quickly. "You don't have to." He looked at her, then nodded slowly. "We'll figure it out." She moved to the window, pulling back the sheer curtain. Rain still poured. Lightning flashed across the sky, the kind of storm that rewrote city maps. "You always this calm during a flood?" she asked, half joking. "I've survived worse." "Like what?" He exhaled. Sat on the couch. Marriage, divorce, press, expectations. A life that stopped feeling like mine a long time ago. She turned to face him, crossed her arms gently. "That's honest." He looked at her again. "What about you?" "Lost my mum. Left to raise myself at 24. Thought the world owed me something until I realized it didn't even know I existed." He nodded once. "That's honest." They both smiled. The ice broke. They didn't sleep together. Not right away. They talked. On the bed. Lying side by side. Not touching. Just breathing in the rare safety of being understood. She told him about growing up in foster care for a few years. About the necklace she always wore that belonged to her mum. About her love for cinnamon rolls and the smell of fresh rain. He told her how money made people love his power, not his soul. About how he could walk into any room, buy it, and still feel empty inside. How he hadn't touched a woman without expectation in years. The space between them got smaller. He brushed her hair from her face. She didn't move away. "You're beautiful," he whispered. Not like a pickup line, but like a man who saw her past the world's noise. She leaned into his palm. That night, they made love slowly. No rush, no demand. Just two tired people letting go of the weight they carried. In the morning, she woke up alone. No card, no number, no name. Just a neatly made bed beside her. And silence. Have you ever shared one night with someone who changed your life forever? Like this video if you felt that kind of connection. What would you have done in Liana's shoes? Liana lay motionless for a few seconds, eyes wide open. She wasn't shocked, just hollow. She sat up slowly, brushing a hand across the sheets where he'd slept. Gone. The bathroom was empty. So was the couch. His coat, his scent, his presence. All vanished like fog. No note, no card, not even a name left behind. She pulled the covers around her, not from cold, but from confusion. Her mind raced. Was it a dream? A mistake? Just a transaction to him? The door creaked open. A hotel housekeeper stepped in and froze when she saw Liana. I'm sorry. I didn't know the room was still occupied," the woman stammered. "It's okay," Liana said, her voice low and calm. "He's gone, isn't he?" The woman nodded awkwardly. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Langdon checked out early this morning. He left the city." Liana didn't respond. She showered, dressed in the same clothes from the night before, and stepped out into the grey morning with nothing in her hands but silence and memory. The following weeks felt like a slow unravelling. Liana returned to her routines. Waitressing, splitting bills, helping her neighbour's teenage daughter with homework. Nobody knew her secret. Not Tamara, not her boss, not even herself at times. She didn't look for him. She figured that was his final message. But 2 months later, her body made one for her. Her morning coffee made her nauseous. The smell of bacon turned her stomach. She couldn't stand on her feet without getting dizzy. Still, she dismissed it. Until the 4th week of fatigue. One cheap test in a tiny bathroom confirmed it. Pregnant. She sat on the closed toilet lid. The test strip balanced on the sink, her hands trembling. Tears slid down her cheeks, not from fear, but from shock. One night, one connection, one mistake, or maybe one miracle. The first person she called was her best friend, Tamara. "Girl, sit down," Liana whispered when Tamara came over. "I am sitting. I'm pregnant." Tamara blinked, waiting for the punchline. "I'm serious," Liana said, holding up the test with a stunned smile. "By who?" Liana exhaled, heart pounding. His name was Stuart. "We met during that storm. He offered me a ride and shelter. We talked. We connected. Connected? Liana wiped her face. I didn't know who he was until I saw his name on a business card. Stuart Langdon. He disappeared before I woke up. Wait, the Stuart Langdon? Like, Billionaire Langdon? Liana nodded. Tamara stared at her like she had two heads. Girl, you mean to tell me you had a one-night stand with one of the richest men in the country, and now you're carrying his baby? It wasn't like that, Liana said quickly. He didn't trick me. He didn't use me. He just left. Tamara stood up and started pacing. So what now? You gonna call him? I don't have his number. You have the man's last name. I don't want anything from him. Liana, this ain't about what you want anymore. This baby deserves to know the truth. Liana looked down, hands resting over her stomach. I'm not going to chase someone who left without a word. I'll do this alone. And she did. She carried Kyla for 9 months with swollen feet, sleepless nights, and no man by her side. But she also carried her with joy. She talked to her belly like it was a friend. She played music to her bump and told her stories about her grandmother. When Kyla came, the room was quiet, just Liana and a nurse who whispered, "She's beautiful," as the newborn was laid on her chest. Curly black hair, a nose like hers. But those eyes, those weren't hers. They were his. Liana named her Kyla Dawn Brooks, because even after a night that ended in silence, this child was her morning. She didn't file for child support, didn't Google headlines. She told herself Stuart probably wouldn't want to be found. Maybe he already had a life, a wife, a world she didn't fit into, so she focused on her own. She picked up catering jobs on the side, saved every extra dollar in a tin behind her stove, and when Kyla turned 2, she launched a tiny home-based business called Kyla's Kitchen, offering healthy, affordable meals to new moms. Her logo? A cartoon version of Kyla with curly hair and wide eyes holding a wooden spoon. It caught attention more than she expected. She was finally building something. Not fast, not big, but hers. Across the city, Stuart Langdon scrolled through his inbox. Endless requests, investment pitches, legal updates. Everything blurred until Nolan, his assistant, placed a small flyer on his desk. "What's this?" Stuart asked. "Random ad came in with the catering drop for the board meeting," Nolan said. "Thought you might want to see it." Stuart lifted it. His body froze. Kyla's Kitchen. There it was, the face he couldn't forget. Cartoon eyes that matched his. A name. A lead. Kyla. His throat tightened. His mind screamed. He stood. "Get me the address. Now." Across town, Liana stood behind a table at a church fundraiser. Warm trays of baked mac, roasted chicken, and collard greens filled the room with comforting smells. Kyla tugged on her apron. "Juice, Mommy?" "1 second, baby." People came. They smiled. They ate. They complimented her cooking. And then, she felt it. A presence. She turned and saw him. Same face. Same posture. But no rain this time. He was wearing a grey coat, tailored, expensive, and his hands were clenched by his sides. She froze. He walked toward her slowly. Her breath caught. Kyla stood between them, unaware of the weight in the air. He knelt down, looked into the child's eyes. "Her name is Kyla?" he whispered. "Yes." "She's mine?" "Yes. I didn't know. You disappeared." "I didn't mean to. I didn't think it would mean anything." "Well, it meant everything," she said sharply, her voice shaking. People around them kept chatting, eating, unaware of the storm between the three of them. Stuart stood. "She's beautiful. She's not your accessory. She's not some charity case you can throw money at. I don't want to throw money. I want to know her. I want to know you. You had your chance. I didn't know. You didn't care to find out." She picked up Kyla. The little girl wrapped her arms around her mother's neck. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said. "But you left without a word," she said, holding her daughter close. She walked away. Again. But this time he watched her go, and he didn't turn around. He planned to return. The days after she walked away from Stuart at the fundraiser felt like walking. Through mist, clear enough to keep going, but too cloudy to see far ahead. Liana didn't regret walking away. She regretted that it had to happen at all. She sat in her small kitchen that night, Kyla asleep in the next room. The dinner trays were rinsed and drying on the rack. Her apron still hung on the door, smelling like garlic and lemon. But her thoughts didn't rest. His face, his voice, his words, "She's mine." He looked at Kyla like a man who recognized something in her he couldn't explain, but felt deeply. Liana had spent the last 2 years trying to forget the weight of that night. She convinced herself it didn't matter that he disappeared. But it did. The next morning, Tamara stormed through the front door without knocking. "You really saw him?" she asked. Liana didn't look up from her coffee. "I did. And he saw Kyla. Said he didn't know. I believe him." Tamara raised her eyebrows. "So what now? Is he calling, coming back, filing papers?" Liana shrugged. "He doesn't have my number. I didn't give it to him. I walked away." Tamara dropped her purse on the couch. "Girl, no, I get it. I do. But you can't just pretend this man doesn't exist. That baby has his blood. She has my heart. That's what matters. Your heart isn't enough to fill both roles forever." Liana stood. "Don't tell me what I already feel every day." Silence. Tamara stepped closer and softened her tone. "I'm not judging you. I'm worried for you. This man didn't lie to you. He just didn't know." Liana's hands trembled as she picked up Kyla's favorite sippy cup. "I'm scared," she said finally. "What if he comes in and messes her up? What if he wins her heart, then leaves again? What if he doesn't?" Tamara asked. But Liana didn't have time to dwell. Her business had grown quickly since the fundraiser. Orders came in from community centers, daycare programs, even a local law firm. Kyla's kitchen became a name people trusted. One Thursday afternoon, Liana arrived at a nearby community library to deliver boxed lunches for a youth mentorship event. She wore her simple apron and a red bandana over her hair. Kyla was at daycare for a few hours. Liana enjoyed the quiet, the rhythm of stacking trays, greeting volunteers, and checking off the delivery sheet. "Miss Brooks?" a voice asked. She turned. Stuart. Black button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, no coat. Just him, standing there like he belonged in the room. Liana blinked. "You again?" "I said I wouldn't walk away this time." "How did you find me?" "Your logo's on the van." She exhaled through her nose. "What do you want?" "To talk. Without a crowd. Without her between us." She nodded once, warily. 15 minutes. "That's all I can give." They stepped outside, onto a shaded bench behind the building. "I never forgot you," he said. "You didn't even know my name. I asked the front desk after you left. They said you were already gone. I came back that night, the next day, but you never returned. Because I wasn't supposed to." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I spent 2 years thinking about what that night meant, wondering who you were. I thought it was better I didn't know, that maybe I spared you." "You didn't spare me," she said, voice low. "You left me pregnant, alone." He looked down. "I didn't know," he said, "but I should have left more than silence. You deserved better." She didn't respond right away. "I don't want money," she said eventually. "We're fine. I work hard. I'm proud of that." "I'm not here to throw money," he said. "I want to be in her life. If you'll let me." Liana looked at him for a long time. "Why now?" "Because I saw her." And everything else stopped making sense. She nodded once, biting her bottom lip. "She's curious," Liana said softly. "Loves animals, hates bedtime, thinks ketchup belongs on eggs." Stuart smiled. "She has your eyes," she added. He swallowed hard. "You can see her," she said finally, "but you'll do it my way. I'll follow every rule you give me." She turned to him, straightened her shoulders. "Then we'll start at the beginning. You meet her, you earn me. You don't disappear again. I won't. You get no pass for being rich. You get no access without presence. Got it?" crystal clear. She stood. "I have to finish this order. I'll wait." She blinked. "You'll what?" "I'll wait until you're done. I want to walk you to your van." Liana stared at him like he'd grown another head. But something in her chest, just barely, unlocked. That evening, as she drove home, she looked at Kyla sleeping in the car seat behind her. Liana whispered, "He wants to know you." Kyla stirred but didn't wake. Liana smiled. "I think I might let him." Stuart arrived at the community park 10 minutes early. He wore jeans, a white t-shirt under a navy jacket, and sneakers that looked a little too new. A man trying to blend in, but clearly unfamiliar with how. He kept checking his watch, pacing by the playground, scanning each car that pulled up. Then he saw Liana. She stepped out of a silver compact SUV, wearing a sweatshirt, leggings, and her hair in a puff. Her daughter's hand clutched hers. Kyla wore yellow overalls and purple sneakers, her curls bouncing with each step. She squinted up at Stuart, not recognizing him but sensing something unfamiliar. Liana leaned down beside her. "Remember what I told you, baby. This is Mr. Stuart. He's Mummy's friend." Kyla looked up at him, her lips in a tight line. Stuart knelt to her level and smiled. "Hi, Kyla. I've been hoping to meet you." Kyla didn't speak. She turned and held tighter to Liana's leg. "She needs time," Liana said, standing firm. "I've got it," Stuart replied. They sat on a bench as Kyla wandered slowly toward the swings. Stuart watched her as if he were trying to memorize every small detail. "She doesn't usually warm up to new people," Liana said. "She doesn't have to," he replied. "I'll earn it." Liana's eyes stayed on her daughter, but she heard the sincerity in his voice. No salesman pitch, no ego, just a man trying. Kyla played with sand under the swings, drawing invisible shapes. Stuart pulled out a snack-sized pack of animal crackers. "May I?" he asked. Liana nodded once. Stuart approached slowly and crouched near Kyla. "I brought these," he said softly. "Want to share them with me?" Kyla turned, curious but unsure. She didn't speak but reached for the pack. Stuart handed it over and sat back on the grass. She sat 2 feet from him, not close, but not far. Liana watched it all unfold like she was outside her own body. After 20 minutes, Kyla pointed to the slide. Stuart followed. They climbed. He waited at the bottom, cheering softly when she slid down. When she asked to do it again, his smile stretched wider than it had in years. Later, as the sun dipped and the streetlights flickered on, Liana called out, "Kyla, time to go." The girl ran back, winded, gripping Stuart's hand as she returned. Liana raised an eyebrow. "She's quick," Stuart said. "She's testing you," Liana replied. "Don't flunk." "I don't plan to." At the car, Kyla opened her arms toward Liana. As she lifted her, Kyla looked back at Stuart. "Bye." Just one word, but Stuart blinked slowly, stunned. That tiny moment felt like thunder in his chest. "Bye, Kyla," he said, his voice low and reverent. As Liana buckled her into the car seat, Stuart stood by the driver's door. "Can we do this again?" he asked. "We'll see," she said, keeping her tone measured. She didn't owe him anything, but something in her wasn't as hard as it had been. That night, she watched Kyla sleep and thought about what her daughter said. A single word that held power. Trust, even if only an ounce of it. Stuart Langdon had showed up once, but one time didn't make him a father. Consistency did. The next week, he returned. Same time, same park. No gifts, no dramatics, just him. Kyla smiled when she saw him this time. Still shy, but less wary. They played tag, collected leaves, and made pretend soup from dirt and sticks. Liana sat nearby, watching, arms crossed but jaw unclenched. A pattern formed. Every Wednesday and Saturday, Stuart showed up. No cancellations, no excuses. He even came once in the rain with an umbrella big enough to cover them both. Liana started leaving them alone for short stretches. She'd sit in the car, checking emails or finishing a meal prep order while keeping the window cracked. One afternoon, Kyla ran to the car holding a lopsided flower crown. "Look, Mummy, we made it together." Stuart smiled behind her, grass in his hair, pride in his posture. "Did he help you pick flowers?" Liana asked. "He made the ugly ones look pretty." Stuart laughed. "Thanks for that." That night, Liana got a text from a number she hadn't saved but now recognized. "Thank you for letting me be part of her world. I won't take it lightly." She didn't reply, but she didn't delete it either. The next Saturday, he arrived with something new. A book, a children's story about a tree who stayed no matter what. He read it to Kyla under the shade of an oak tree. She curled up beside him, listening closely. Liana watched them and, for the first time, felt stillness instead of tension. Later that week, Liana met Tamara for lunch. Over fries and lemonade, she finally let the dam crack. "He's showing up," she said. Tamara raised a brow. "And how's that feel?" "Like I don't know how to feel." "You still mad?" "I don't have the energy for mad anymore." "Are you softening?" Liana stirred her drink. "I don't know. He's good with her. He doesn't push. He just lets her be." "And you?" "He lets me breathe." Tamara leaned in. "Then maybe it's not about trusting what he did before. It's about trusting what he's doing now." That night, Liana scrolled through her phone and looked at the unsent draft she'd typed weeks ago. "Kyla talks about you. A lot." She hit send. He replied within seconds. "She changed everything for me." Liana stared at the screen for a long time before typing. "Let's take it slow. But I'm willing to see where this goes." The typing dots popped up right away. "Slow is fine. I'm not going anywhere this time." She turned off her phone and lay back in bed. No smile, no fear, just a strange kind of peace. The kind that comes when someone doesn't promise the world, only that they'll keep showing up in yours. The logo was just a sketch, a doodle Liana made one night at 1 a.m. with a pencil and a cup of chamomile tea. Kyla had finally gone to sleep after fighting bedtime for almost an hour, and the silence gave Liana space to dream. She'd drawn a little girl with 2 puffball buns, smiling wide, holding a wooden spoon twice her size. Big round eyes, familiar eyes. The kind that made people pause when they saw Kyla. Those weren't Liana's eyes. She added a chef's hat and scribbled the name below. Kyla's Kitchen. It was simple, innocent, but it changed everything. Liana never planned to become a business owner. She just needed money. Being a single mom wasn't cheap, and her job at the diner barely covered daycare, diapers, and rent. She started small, offering meal prep services for new moms in her neighborhood. Lasagna trays, roasted chicken, healthy toddler snacks. She delivered everything herself, baby in the back seat, tray strapped down beside her. Then came the logo. Then came the Instagram page. Then came the fundraiser that changed her life. Again. She didn't know Stuart had seen the logo that day. She had no idea he even remembered her face. But when she turned and found him standing beside her catering table, looking at the image of their daughter smiling from a printed banner, the silence in her chest cracked open. That night after the park visit, after he helped buckle Kyla into her car seat, she noticed something. He lingered, not in a creepy way, but like someone holding back the urge to ask a question he didn't know if he had the right to ask. "Spit it out," she said bluntly as she closed the back door. He blinked. The logo. It's her. It's her face. Liana folded her arms. "I know what you're thinking. I'm not angry," he said quickly. "I'm amazed." "Why?" "Because you turned her into something beautiful. You built something out of what I left broken." She shifted. "You didn't leave me broken. Just alone." He nodded. "You're right." They stood there, under the amber glow of a street lamp. Her hands were dry from hours of cooking. His jacket held the faint smell of her daughter's sunscreen. For a few seconds, neither of them said a word. "I want to help," he said. "You're already doing that. Just by showing up. I mean, with the business." Liana narrowed her eyes. You think you can buy your way in? No, he said. I think I can support what's already thriving. She studied his face. His tone wasn't condescending. It wasn't controlling. It was something new, humble. Then start with delivery runs, she said. You've got time and a fancy car. Let's see how good you are with hot trays and GPS. His eyes lit up. Done. The next day he texted her early. Good morning. Ready to be your delivery guy. What time do I show up? She smiled and sent him an address list and instructions, 3 stops. Do not mix up the labels. He arrived wearing black joggers, a grey tee, and an apron she didn't give him. He looked absurd and adorable, and she tried not to laugh when he held up a box of biodegradable food containers like he was presenting gold. You labeling these with her stickers? He asked. Yep. Customers love seeing Kyla's face on the boxes. She's already building her brand, he said proudly. Don't get ahead of yourself. It's a one-woman show. You're just my temporary intern. That first delivery run went smoother than she expected. He followed her instructions to the letter, texted updates at each stop, and even handed out sample cards to 3 potential clients. When he returned, she half expected him to boast. Instead, he said, You run a tight ship. You're impressive. Liana didn't blush, but her smile stayed longer than usual. Later that night, while cleaning up after dinner, Kyla pointed at the counter where one of the leftover stickers rested. Mummy, that's me. Yes, it is, Liana said, kissing her forehead. Did Mr. Stewart make it? Liana paused. No, baby. I made it. But he helped deliver them. Kyla seemed satisfied with that answer and returned to her applesauce. Liana turned her attention back to the dishes, but her thoughts drifted. She remembered the girl who cried in a hospital room with no one to hold her hand. The girl who changed diapers with shaking fingers and went back to work 5 days after birth. The girl who built a brand out of grit. And now, here was Stewart, washing delivery trays in her sink, sleeves rolled up, elbows dripping. I know I don't say it much, he muttered. She glanced over. Say what? I'm sorry. For disappearing. She dried her hands and faced him. You've said it without words. He looked up, surprised. You being here? That's louder than any apology. A soft knock on the door pulled them both from the moment. Tamara walked in, holding 2 folders and a curious smile. Interrupting anything? Nope, Liana said quickly. Stewart stepped aside, drying his hands. I brought vendor forms, Tamara said. For that food fair next month, you need to register. Liana took the papers, scanning the dates. Stewart glanced at them. This could be big, Tamara said. Exposure, networking, maybe some funding. Stewart nodded. Let me know if you need help with the setup. Liana raised a brow. You volunteering to carry tents and tables? Only if you feed me after. They all chuckled, and the moment felt easy, almost too easy. Later that night, after Kyla was tucked in and Tamara had left, Stewart hovered by the door. She's strong, he said, glancing down the hallway. She had to be, Liana replied. He looked at her for a long moment. And you're letting me back in, a little at a time. Liana nodded. Because you're earning it. He smiled softly. Good night, Liana. Good night, Stewart. She watched him walk away, not with sadness, but with awareness. He wasn't the man who left without a word anymore. He was the man walking back, 1 step at a time. 2 weeks after their delivery run routine began, Liana let Stewart pick Kyla up from daycare for the first time. It wasn't a grand gesture. It was practical. Liana had a catering job that ran late, and the sitter cancelled last minute. She hesitated before texting him. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Can you pick Kyla from daycare today? 4:15. I'll send the address. She didn't expect the bubble to pop up so quickly. On my way. At 4:17, the daycare supervisor called Liana to confirm. Mr. Langdon's here for Kyla. She ran right into his arms. Liana smiled at the call, but her chest tightened too. It was the first time Kyla had ever gone to someone else willingly. When she got home later that evening, Stuart and Kyla were on the floor, crayons scattered everywhere. He was on his stomach, coloring a crooked sun. Kyla had drawn a giant figure with big brown eyes and the words "My Daddy" scribbled in purple beneath it. Liana froze in the doorway. She didn't know whether to cry or walk away. She did neither. Stuart looked up, his smile fading a bit when he saw her expression. "She asked who I was," he said gently. "I didn't lie. I told her I'm the man who loves her very much. I said I'm trying to be in her life because she's special." Liana looked down at the drawing. Her heart thumped. "She wrote that herself," Stuart added. "I didn't ask her to." Kyla jumped up and hugged Liana's legs. "Mommy, look what we made." "I see, baby. You did great." Later that night, once Kyla was tucked in, Stuart stayed behind and helped Liana clean up the last few orders. They worked in silence, the kind that didn't feel awkward anymore. "I didn't mean to cross a line," he said quietly. "You didn't," Liana answered. "She knows something's always been missing. She just doesn't have the words yet. I don't want to confuse her." "You won't, if you stay consistent." Stuart set down a dish and dried his hands. "She's mine," he said softly. "I feel it, every time she laughs, every time she grabs my hand. It's like I was always meant to be here. I just didn't get here in time." Liana's eyes found his, slow and searching. "You're here now," she said. "And that's what she'll remember." They stood close, closer than they had in weeks, not touching, not rushing, but no longer strangers. That night, when Stuart left, Liana didn't lock the door behind him right away. She stood there, palm against the wood, wondering when her walls started softening. The next day brought a surprise neither of them expected. A citywide small business spotlight from a major online magazine emailed Liana. Someone had nominated Kyla's Kitchen for the fall feature. The editor wrote, "We love your brand story. Your logo caught our eye. A young black mother building a business around her daughter's image? It's powerful, personal, and deeply marketable." Liana sat at the kitchen table reading the email again and again. She hadn't submitted anything. She hadn't told anyone about the spotlight. Only one person came to mind. She called Stuart. "I didn't nominate you," he said immediately. But I shared your page with a friend who writes for the platform. They're the ones who submitted you, so you put the wheels in motion." "I saw something worth celebrating," he said. "You've been working in silence long enough." Liana didn't know whether to thank him or hang up, so she did neither. "I haven't said yes yet," she replied. "It's your choice. But the world should see what Kyla's mom built." Liana stared out the window, thinking about all the mornings she woke up before the sun just to prep food and still pack a diaper bag. All the nights she stayed up labeling containers while Kyla slept on the couch next to her. She clicked reply on the email and wrote, "Let's talk." The article dropped 2 weeks later. The mother behind Kyla's Kitchen, building more than just meals. It went viral in their community within hours. Orders doubled. Local vendors called to collaborate. A small grant offer hit her inbox the next day. Stuart texted her a single line. "Told you, the world needed to see you." Liana didn't respond, but her chest warmed anyway. Kyla's Kitchen became more than a side hustle. It became a movement. Young mothers reached out, asking how she started. Churches invited her to speak. One night, after putting Kyla to bed, Liana stood in the middle of her kitchen and whispered, "We did it, baby girl." Behind her, Stuart walked in holding 2 mugs of tea. "You're still standing," he said with pride. "I haven't sat down in 2 years," she smiled. He offered her a mug and leaned against the counter. "You know, you could be on billboards. I don't want fame, I want freedom. For me, for her." He nodded. "And maybe a commercial kitchen with better counters." He chuckled. "Let me know when you're ready. I'll invest." Liana raised a brow. "You'll partner?" "No. I'll follow your lead." She sipped her tea. "I'll think about it." They stood there, 2 people who shared a bed once, but now shared something deeper. Time, trust, effort. "Stuart," she said slowly, Don't fall in love with this idea of us. Fall in love with the truth. He stepped closer. The truth is, I never stopped feeling what I felt that night. She held his gaze. And now, I feel it more. Because I know you. Because I see you. Liana's voice dropped to a whisper. Then keep seeing me. He nodded, closing the small space between them. Not touching, not yet. But he was closer than ever, and she wasn't stepping back. Liana didn't realize how many people were watching until they started talking. The article about Kyla's kitchen had gone viral locally, but it reached places she hadn't expected. A cousin she hadn't spoken to in years sent a voice note. An old co-worker who once laughed at her for carrying her baby on delivery. Runs now reposted the story with clapping emojis, and she did that. But the real noise came from the whispers. Isn't that the girl who had a one-night stand with that billionaire? She really kept the baby? He's back in her life now. Must be nice. She heard them at the farmer's market, saw them in the comment section of a random post, and she felt it every time someone smiled too wide or asked too many personal questions about Stuart. Tamara noticed it too. They're eating it up, she said, scrolling on her phone. And I don't mean your food, Liana sighed, rubbing her temples. I didn't ask for all this attention. You didn't have to. Your story sells. I'm not a brand. I'm a mother. You're both, Tamara replied. But the second you let him in your space again, the story became public. Liana's silence was sharp. Tamara leaned forward. You sure about him? I'm sure about his effort. Tamara tilted her head. That's not the same as being sure about him. Liana stood and poured more lemonade. Effort is all I'm asking for right now. But even as she said it, part of her wondered, how long will he try? And what happens when the trying gets hard? That weekend, Stuart asked to take Kyla out for their first solo outing, just the two of them. Liana hesitated. He noticed. I'll keep it short, he promised. Just the park and some ice cream. I'll text every 30 minutes. I'll drop her off exactly when you say, you'll have her back by 4 p.m. Sharp, she said firmly. Stuart nodded. Of course. She packed a small bag with wipes, extra clothes, allergy-friendly snacks, and hand sanitizer. Kyla jumped into his arms without hesitation. You ready to go on an adventure with Daddy? He asked, trying out the word for the first time in front of Liana. Kyla nodded enthusiastically. Liana didn't say anything, but her jaw tightened. They left, and the house felt hollow. Liana cleaned the same counter twice, rearranged the spice rack, folded laundry that didn't need folding. She finally sat on the couch, arms wrapped around herself, glancing at her phone every 5 minutes. At 3:58, she heard the knock. She opened the door before he could raise his hand again. Kyla ran into her arms, sticky from ice cream, giggling. Mummy, I saw a bird that looked like a grandma. Liana laughed, holding her close. Stuart smiled. We had fun. Any trouble? She fell on the grass once. I panicked. She didn't. Liana looked over Kyla's head and locked eyes with him. Thank you. For what? For not being late. For doing what you said you would. He nodded. I meant it when I said, I'm not going anywhere. She stepped aside, letting him walk in to wash Kyla's hands. As he helped her, Liana stared at them both, the man she once slept beside without, knowing his last name, now standing at her kitchen sink like it was normal. When Stuart left that night, he paused at the door. Liana. She looked up. I'm falling in love with her. Her breath caught. She's easy to love, she replied. I want to say it's just about her, he added. But that wouldn't be honest. Liana held his gaze, voice steady. You don't get to walk back in and say that like no time has passed. I'm not asking for everything. Good, she said, because you haven't earned it. His shoulders dropped slightly. Not from defeat, but respect. Understood, he whispered. But I'll keep showing up. She nodded once and closed the door softly behind him. Her hand lingered on the doorknob. 3 days later, Stuart invited them both to a small family event, his father's retirement brunch. He said it would be low-key, just close friends and family, no press, no pressure. Liana didn't answer right away. His family? Tamara gasped when Liana told her. Already. He says he wants them to meet Kyla, or he wants to prove something to them. Liana narrowed her eyes. He doesn't need to prove anything. He's rich. Trust me, he's always proving something to somebody. Liana turned away. I don't want Kyla being treated like a public statement. Then don't let her be. That night, Liana stared at her closet, debating whether to say yes. Kyla twirled in the hallway in her socks, singing made-up songs. Would you want to meet your grandpa? Liana asked gently. Do he have juice? Liana smiled. Probably. Then yes. Liana chuckled, still unsure. But something inside her said it was time to see what Stuart's world looked like, and whether it could ever truly make space for hers. The Langdon estate sat just outside the city, nestled behind tall iron gates, and a long winding drive lined with trimmed hedges and white magnolia trees. The house wasn't loud or gaudy like some billionaire homes Liana had seen in magazines. It was quiet wealth, historic, understated, the kind of place built to last, not just impress. As Stuart pulled into the driveway, Kyla sat in the back seat, humming, with her shoes off, holding her stuffed bunny like it was armor. You nervous? Liana asked. Kyla shook her head. They got juice, remember? Liana smiled faintly. Her nerves were louder than her daughter's calm. Stuart glanced at her from the driver's seat. We don't have to stay long, just brunch. We eat, we smile, we leave. You sure they'll smile back? He parked and placed the car in park. They don't run this. She stared out the window for a second before unbuckling her seatbelt. He came around to help Kyla out of her seat, lifting her gently and settling her on his hip. The little girl leaned her head against his shoulder. As they approached the front steps, the door opened. A tall woman stood in a sleek black dress, pearls around her neck, and lips pressed so tight they might never part. Her hair was silver blonde, not a strand out of place. Behind her, a man with salt and pepper hair gave a polite smile. Mother, father, Stuart said as they reached the door. This is Liana. And this, he added, adjusting his hold on Kyla, is Kyla. His mother didn't speak. Her gaze dropped to the child, lingered, then rose again. His father stepped forward first. Welcome, he said, extending his hand to Liana. I'm Douglas Langdon. It's good to finally meet you. Liana accepted the handshake, firm but cautious. Thank you for having us. Kyla peeked up at the older man. Do you got juice? Douglas chuckled. We sure do, sweetheart. That cracked the first layer of tension. Stuart's mother stepped aside wordlessly, allowing them in. The inside of the home smelled like fresh flowers and cinnamon. A long dining table had been set in the sunroom. Glass walls, gold flatware, white napkins, everything pristine, almost too pristine for a toddler. Liana reached for Kyla's hand, but Stuart still held her. May I? He asked quietly. Liana nodded. She followed behind, keeping a calm expression, but her eyes scanned. Everything. Every glance, every pause, every tight-lipped smile. During brunch, Kyla sat between Stuart and Liana, swinging her legs and munching on fruit like she'd been here 100 times. When she dropped her fork, Douglas picked it up and handed her another without blinking. Stuart's mother flinched. So, she said finally, cutting into her salad, Kyla's adorable. Liana gave a small smile. Thank you. How old is she? 2 years and 4 months. A very particular age. Stuart stiffened slightly. Liana didn't blink. She's curious, sharp, kind. Must be from your side, his mother said, sipping her wine. Liana raised an eyebrow. She gets her resilience from me, yes. Stuart looked his mother dead in the eye. Kyla isn't up for comparison. His mother dabbed her mouth with a napkin and gave a tight smile. Of course not. Douglas cleared his throat. I think she's a bright light. It's been a long time since this house had one. The air softened again. After brunch, Kyla wandered toward the garden. Stuart followed closely behind, giving her space to explore. Liana stayed behind. She wasn't done with the mother. "May I speak freely?" she asked. Stuart's mother raised an eyebrow. "I'd expect nothing less. I'm not here for your approval. I didn't come into your son's life looking for anything. I left that hotel without asking for his last name. I built a business. I raised our daughter alone. I did the hard parts. So if you're wondering what kind of woman I am, look at Kyla. She tells you everything you need to know." The woman didn't respond, just stared at her. Then, slowly, she said, "She's lucky to have you." Liana blinked, not expecting that. "She's also lucky he came back." With that, she stood and walked away, her heels clicking lightly against the tile. Out in the garden, Stuart knelt beside Kyla as she plucked a dandelion and held it out to him. "Blow, Daddy," she said. He did, watching the tiny seeds float into the wind like hope. Liana approached, slipping her hand into Kyla's and brushing her fingers against Stuart's without meaning to. Their eyes met. "Well," he said softly, "that was interesting. She didn't spit at me, so that's a win. She spit at my high school girlfriend once." Liana laughed, genuinely. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Thank you for not warning me," she replied. He chuckled. "You handled it." Kyla tugged on their hands. "Can we go now?" "Yes, baby," Liana said. "We can go." As they walked back to the car, Stuart whispered, "She's not going to be a secret anymore. I won't hide either of you." Liana looked ahead. "You don't get to walk back in and erase the past," she said. "I'm not trying to erase anything," he replied. "I'm trying to build something that includes it." This time, she didn't argue. She just opened the back door, lifted Kyla into her seat, and turned to him. "Then keep showing me." He nodded. "I will." She got in the car and started the engine. As they pulled away, Stuart stood on the gravel path, hand raised in a silent goodbye. Kyla waved from the window, and Liana didn't stop her. Stuart didn't make promises anymore. He made appointments, and he kept every single one. Every Monday, he picked Kyla up from daycare. Every Thursday, he dropped off catering trays for Liana without being asked. And every Saturday, without fail, he showed up at 9 a.m. with 2 coffees, a smile, and a question that always made her pause. "What can I do for you today?" He wasn't flashy. He didn't flood her with gifts or grand gestures. What he gave was time, presence, the kind of help that didn't need to be asked for. That's what startled her most. One morning, Liana opened her door to find a folded table and a roll of vinyl tablecloths leaning against her porch wall. No note, no text, just what she'd mentioned the day before that she needed for an outdoor vendor event. She looked up. Stuart was across the street in his car, pretending to check emails. "You think you're slick?" she called out. He looked up and grinned. Didn't want to knock. Thought Kyla might still be sleeping. "She is. So, am I forgiven?" "We'll see," she said, trying not to smile. Truth was, she was beginning to forget what life looked like without him orbiting it. Not just as Kyla's father, but as something else. Something warmer, something consistent. And consistency had always been foreign to her. That Saturday, after helping her set up at a neighborhood market, Stuart stayed for the entire event. He wore one of her branded aprons. Not as a joke, not to get credit, just because he saw the stack of them and grabbed one. Customers came and went, many recognizing him. "Is that the Langdon guy? He's working a food booth?" Someone whispered. "I thought he owned hotels, not serving spoons." Liana heard every comment. Stuart didn't flinch. When someone walked up to him and said, "What's a billionaire doing slinging trays?" he simply replied, "Supporting something that matters." By noon, he was sweaty, low-key sunburned, and running back and forth, between her booth and the prep cooler, like he'd done this for years. When he spilled juice on his shirt, Kyla giggled so hard she fell off her little camp chair. He caught her before she hit the ground. "You're strong," she shouted. He winked at her. "I'm getting stronger." That night, they drove back to Liana's place. quiet in the car, except for Kyla humming in the back seat. When they pulled up, Stuart turned off the engine but didn't move. "Liana," he said. She didn't look at him yet. "I know I don't deserve a second chance at everything, but I want one with you, not just as Kyla's father. As your partner." She turned slowly. The setting sun lit his profile in soft gold. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were calm. "You want me," she said carefully, "or you want the idea of redeeming yourself?" He didn't hesitate. "You? What does that even mean?" "It means I wake up thinking about you and go to sleep, hoping you're not still angry. It means I've fallen in love with how you think, how you fight, how you love her. It means I see a life where the three of us don't have to be pieces. We can be a whole." Liana looked at him, lips parted, but unsure what to say. "You're still healing," he added. "I know that. So I'm not asking for anything tonight. I'm just saying I'm not walking away." She exhaled through her nose. "Then stay for dinner," she said quietly. He looked at her, surprised. "But don't try to impress me," she added. "Just be here." "I can do that." Inside, Kyla was already pulling plates from the low cabinet. "We having noodles?" she asked. Liana smirked. "Sure are." Stuart rolled up his sleeves. "Point me to the pot." Dinner was chaotic, in the way only toddler dinners could be. Kyla spilled water twice, declared war on green peas, and insisted her bunny needed a seat at the table. Stuart went along with every demand like it was the most natural thing in the world. When Kyla yawned mid-sentence, Liana looked up. "Bedtime. 5 more minutes," Kyla pleaded. 3, Liana countered. Kyla looked at Stuart. "Can Daddy do bedtime?" Liana's heart skipped. Stuart looked at her, waiting for permission. She nodded. He carried Kyla down the hallway, whispering something soft. Her giggles faded into the bedroom. Liana cleared the plates slowly, letting the silence wrap around her like a blanket. 10 minutes later, Stuart returned. Quietly. "She's out," he said. "Didn't even make it to page 3 of the book." Liana chuckled. "You have the voice for story time." He walked into the kitchen, picked up a towel, and began drying dishes without being asked. "You're settling in like this is your home," she said, half joking. He paused, then looked at her. "Maybe one day." She didn't reply. But she didn't stop him either. The next morning, Liana woke before the alarm. Not because she had to prep meals or get Kyla ready for daycare, but because her mind was loud. She sat at the edge of her bed, the early light creeping through the curtains, and stared at the wall for a long time. She'd invited Stuart into her space, into her daughter's bedtime routine, into the soft, quiet moments most men ran from, and he hadn't flinched. He had stayed. But something in her still hesitated to breathe easily, because staying once didn't mean he'd keep choosing to stay. After Kyla left for daycare that morning with her usual applesauce and headband combo, Liana texted Stuart, "Come by around 7 tonight." "No, Kyla, just us." His reply came seconds later. "I'll be there." She didn't tell him why. She didn't explain. Because this wasn't a date. It was a test. A quiet one, but real. When Stuart arrived, he wore a black hoodie and jeans. Casual, comfortable. The kind of outfit that looked out of place on someone whose face still appeared in business articles. She opened the door, letting him in with a nod. "You okay?" he asked as he stepped inside. "I'm not sure yet." She led him to the kitchen. The counters were clear. No food, no takeout bags, just a single folder on the table. She gestured to it. He opened it. Inside were hospital bills, past rent notices, Kyla's birth certificate, a small stack of receipts from the first 2 years of Kyla's life. There were even a few ultrasound photos, creased and worn. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, reading each line, absorbing it. She folded her arms across her chest and leaned against the wall. "I want you to see what it looked like without you." He nodded slowly. "I'm looking." She didn't speak for a long minute. Then, "I bled for 3 days straight after she was born. Alone. No one held my hand." I had to teach myself how to breastfeed from YouTube. I was back working shifts before I could even walk straight. I carried her on my chest while I cooked, and I smiled through all of it because I had no choice. He looked up from the folder. His eyes were red. "I didn't know," he said, voice low. "You couldn't have," she replied. "But I lived it. And I don't want you to ever forget that while you're asking to build something new." He set the folder down gently and stepped back. "I don't want to erase your journey," he said. "I want to be a part of it moving forward, but I'll never pretend those years didn't cost you something." She took a slow breath. That was the answer she needed. Not guilt, not defensiveness, just acknowledgement. She walked to the kitchen and poured them each a glass of water. They sat. For a while, neither of them spoke, until she finally said, "I kept those receipts to remind myself what I survived. They should be in a museum," he said with a small smile. "Right next to the first onesie and the baby swing you probably couldn't afford." She chuckled under her breath. That swing broke down after 2 weeks. She hated it anyway. He leaned forward, his hands wrapped around the glass. "Do you ever get tired of being strong?" She looked at him for a long time. All the time. He reached across the table, not grabbing her hand, but just placing his palm close enough that she could take it if she wanted. She did. Their fingers linked quietly. "I'm not here to fix anything," he said. "Just to stand next to you while you keep building." Her throat tightened. "Why are you saying all the right things?" she whispered. "Because they're true." She held his hand tighter. "I'm still scared. So am I." That broke something between them. Not in a bad way, but in a necessary way. It collapsed the last protective wall she'd built to keep him from getting too close. And now, there was nothing left but truth. Later that night, after he left, she didn't cry. She didn't overthink. She cleaned up, closed the folder, and tucked it back into the drawer where it belonged. Not because she was hiding it, but because she didn't need it on the table anymore. For the first time, Liana could finally say she wasn't doing it alone. Not anymore. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing about that morning suggested it would go wrong. The sun rose gently. The skies were clear. Liana packed Kyla's favorite fruit snacks in her lunchbox, kissed her cheek, and handed her off to Stuart in the driveway. He was taking Kyla to preschool solo for the first time. "You've got everything?" she asked, double-checking. Lunchbox, juice, backup shirt, and the bunny that has mysteriously become essential. Kyla held the stuffed bunny up like a badge of honor. "And don't forget, she hates when the teacher cuts her sandwich in squares," Liana said. "Got it. Triangles only," he replied. "I'm the fun dad." "You're the learning dad," she corrected. "Fun is earned." He smiled, lifted Kyla into the car seat, and gave a 2-finger salute as he pulled off. Liana watched them drive away, her chest full and light. But 3 hours later, her phone rang, and everything inside her dropped. "Hi, this is Miss Carmen from Harmony Preschool. Kyla had a small asthma episode during snack time. She's okay, but we need you or Mr. Langdon to come." Liana's heart sprinted. Did someone use peanut butter? No. She just got triggered during outdoor play. We followed her protocol and gave her a puff from her inhaler, but she's asking for her dad. For a second, Liana froze. Her daughter didn't call for her. She called for him. "I'm on my way," Liana said, grabbing her keys, then paused. "Wait, did you call Stuart?" "Yes. He's already en route." By the time Liana arrived, Stuart was sitting on a tiny plastic chair beside Kyla's cot, reading from her favorite book about animals that wear sneakers. Kyla was calm again, eyes sleepy, a little pale, but holding her bunny. Stuart looked up when Liana walked in. He didn't say anything. He just gave her a look that said, "I was scared, but I handled it." Liana walked over, knelt down, and ran her fingers over Kyla's forehead. "Hey, baby," she whispered. "You feeling better?" Kyla nodded slowly. "I didn't like the air." "I know. You're okay now." Stuart gently closed the book. I stayed with her, gave her the second puff, and sat until her breathing settled. Liana looked at him, seeing a new layer of man in his eyes, one that had panicked, held it together, and kept a child safe through it. "You did good," she said quietly. "She was brave," he said. "I was faking it." That night, at home, Kyla slept earlier than usual, her body still recovering. Liana and Stuart sat on the porch, a soft breeze moving through the trees. "You didn't call me," she said. "I was driving," he replied. "I didn't want to panic you until I had her in my arms." "Still," she said, glancing at him, "you were calm." "I wasn't. Not inside." She nodded slowly. "Now you know." "Know what?" "That loving a child means walking around every day with part of your heart outside your body." He swallowed hard, looking at the floorboards. "She called for me," he said. "She did. That scared me more than the asthma." "Why?" "Because it means I'm really her father now, not just on paper, not just in name, but in her little heart." Liana leaned back, arms folded. "She's always known," she said, even before she had the words. A pause passed between them. Heavy, real. "She needs us both," Stuart said. "Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient." "I know. I want to talk about school," he added. "Long-term plans, health insurance, legal rights. I want to do it the right way." Liana turned to him, surprised. "You're serious?" "I want to be listed, officially. I want joint guardianship. I want to share the responsibility, not borrow it." She stared at him, blinking slowly. "You've thought about this?" "Since I left the preschool parking lot." She didn't respond for a long moment. "Let's start by writing down what Kyla needs," she said finally. "Not what we want, what she needs. Then we'll figure out how to build around that." He nodded. "That's fair. And no lawyers yet," she added. "Let's be parents before we become clients." His mouth lifted into a small smile. "I can work with that." She glanced back through the living room window, where Kyla lay on the couch, Bunny tucked under her chin, breathing slow and steady. "She's going to remember this day," Liana whispered. "Not the asthma. But who stayed?" "She better," Stuart replied. Liana smiled, but her eyes didn't leave her daughter. "She will." It was the kind of evening that begged for quiet. Golden light poured through the trees, casting long shadows over the porch. The neighborhood was calm, kids inside, parents winding down, the hum of life softening with the sunset. Liana stepped out first with 2 mugs of chamomile tea. Stuart was already on the porch swing, one arm stretched along the back, watching Kyla through the window as she colored in her favorite book. "She asked me today if bunny ears are real," he said. Liana handed him his mug and sat beside him. "They are, but not the pink sparkly kind with glitter," she said. She was disappointed. "She'll survive." They rocked in silence for a few beats, both sipping, both holding on to the stillness. Then Liana spoke. "You wanted this talk." He didn't pretend to be confused. He nodded, set his tea down on the porch railing, and leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "I don't know how to say it without sounding like I'm trying to win you over," he said. "Then don't try to win. Just be honest." He nodded again, slower this time. The swing creaked beneath their weight as he sat up straighter. "I was married before," he said. "You know that part." Liana didn't interrupt. "What you don't know is why it ended." He paused. "She couldn't have children," he continued. "We tried, for years. IVF, surgeries, natural remedies, the works. But it didn't happen. And the silence between us grew loud." Liana blinked, but kept still. "She started to resent me. I started staying at work longer. We became strangers in the same house. Eventually, she said something I couldn't unhear." He swallowed hard. "She said I'd make a terrible father, that I was too cold, too focused on control, that if we did have a child, they'd probably grow up hating me." Liana finally spoke. "Is that why you left that morning? After we spent the night together?" He turned to her slowly. "Yes, I scared you. You gave me something real, and I didn't trust myself not to ruin it." She didn't speak. The porch seemed to hold its breath. "I wasn't ready then," he added. But I am now, because she exists now? Liana asked, her tone sharp but steady. No, because she taught me I don't have to be perfect, just present. Liana looked down at her hands. I used to think you were heartless. I was numb, not heartless. You left without a word. I thought I was protecting you. She finally looked up at him. I didn't need protection. I needed respect. I know, he whispered. I failed you. A long silence followed, the kind that tastes like truth. Then Liana leaned back, holding her tea close. I didn't tell you I was pregnant because I didn't think you deserved to know. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't argue. I was angry. I felt disposable. And I didn't want to raise my daughter thinking she came from that. I understand, but I was wrong to hide her, she added. He looked at her sharply. You weren't wrong. You did what you had to do. No, I did what hurt less. That's not the same thing. Stuart didn't move, didn't speak. She continued, Kyla deserved to know you sooner. Even if I wasn't ready to face you, I'm here now. And I'm trying to believe that won't change. It won't. She turned to him again. I'm not saying I forgive everything, but I'm not carrying it all anymore either. He nodded. I'll carry the rest. You don't have to carry anything. Just stay. He reached for her hand gently. She let him take it. The swing moved slowly beneath them. Inside, Kyla yawned, crawling into a blanket on the couch, still coloring in the fading light. Liana squeezed his hand. Next time you get scared, she whispered, don't run, talk. He nodded again. I promise. And if you break that promise, I'll fix it, right here, on this porch. Every time. She smiled, not because she believed him fully yet, but because part of her wanted to try. And sometimes, that was enough to start again. After the porch talk, Stuart didn't leave. Not right away. Liana stood up first, finishing her tea and glancing through the window to check on Kyla. She had drifted off, the crayon still in her hand, one sock halfway off her foot. Bunny tucked tight under her chin. I should carry her to bed, Liana said softly. I can, Stuart offered. She gave him a quick look, like she was measuring whether it was too much, but then nodded. He entered the living room quietly, gently scooped Kyla up, and held her like she was something sacred. Her tiny fingers curled into the collar of his shirt, and even half asleep, she murmured, Night-night, Daddy. Liana followed silently as he carried her down the hallway and laid her on the bed. He pulled the covers up to her chin, tucked in the bunny, and stood for a second longer than he needed to, just watching her. Back in the hallway, Liana leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She sleeps better when you're around, she said. I sleep better when I know she's safe. Their eyes met again. There was no tension, just something unspoken lingering between them, a question neither wanted to ask out loud. They walked back to the kitchen together, slowly. The porch lights still glowed outside, but the mood inside had changed. It was no longer about conversation. It was about choice. Liana placed her mug in the sink and turned to him. It's late, I know, he said. She watched him, lips parted, unsure of what to say next. He took a step closer, not fast, not expecting. If I leave right now, he said quietly, I'll go home and think about everything I should have said, everything I should have done. And, if you stay, she asked, voice low. I won't say anything I haven't earned, he said, but I'll stay. Liana didn't move. Her heart pounded, but not from fear. From choice. This wasn't like that first night, the storm, the one bed, the unspoken grief they both carried. This was different. This time, she knew his name. This time, she knew the cost. This time, she wasn't the girl hoping he'd wake up next to her. She was the woman deciding whether he deserved to be here. She stepped back slightly, looked him over and said, If you stay, there's no pretending after this. I don't want to pretend. I don't want to feel abandoned in the morning. You won't. She stared at him for a few more seconds, then turned off the kitchen light and walked toward her bedroom. She didn't say, Follow me. She didn't have to. They stood in the dim light of her room, both quiet. He moved closer and placed a hand gently on her waist. She looked up at him, eyes soft, lips barely parted. He kissed her like he meant it, not to claim her, but to assure her. His hands weren't demanding. They explored carefully, like every inch of her was something sacred. She didn't rush. She didn't tremble. Because this wasn't a fling. This was forgiveness folding into touch. When they lay down, skin to skin, nothing about it was casual. She traced the scar near his ribs he once got snowboarding. He kissed the stretch marks at her hips like they were poems. He whispered her name like it was a prayer. She whispered his, like it was the first time she'd allowed herself to believe it meant something. They moved slowly, with care, with reverence, and when it was over, she didn't turn away. She lay in his arms, head on his chest, breathing in sync. He kissed her hair. "I'm still here," he whispered. "I know," she said. But in the early hours of the morning, Liana woke up alone. The space beside her was empty. She sat up quickly, heart already racing. Not again. Please, not again. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and walked through the hallway barefoot. But when she stepped into the living room, she froze. There he was, sitting on the couch, fully dressed. Phone in his lap, head in his hands. He looked up when she stepped closer. "I didn't want to wake you," he said. "Why are you out here?" "I couldn't sleep." She sat beside him. "Cold feet?" "No," he said quickly. "Not about you. Never about you." He took a breath. "I saw my father in a dream. He was holding Kyla, and I panicked." "Why?" "Because I don't want to become him." Liana watched him closely. "You're not him." He used silence as power, distance as control. And I learned from him how to disappear when things got too intimate, too real. She stayed quiet. He looked at her, eyes tired but honest. "Tonight scared me because it meant I'm not allowed to vanish again." "You're not." "I don't want to. But I need you to know. I'm still learning how to stay." Liana reached over and took his hand. "Then start here. Start now." "I already did," he said. "The day I walked back into your life." They sat there in the quiet for a long time, and when they finally went back to bed, neither one said another word. Because trust wasn't built in grand speeches. It was built in who stayed between midnight and sunrise. And this time, he did. Mornings changed after that night, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in subtle rhythms only the heart could measure. Stuart didn't rush out anymore. He stayed for pancakes, helped brush out Kyla's curls, and learned to pack a daycare bag without forgetting her pink spoon. One morning, Liana woke up to find him in the kitchen, shirt slightly wrinkled, face focused, struggling to cut sandwiches into the perfect triangles. "Crust or no crust?" he asked, without turning around. "No crust. You should know this by now," she teased. "I'm learning," he replied, holding up his imperfect but sincere effort. She smiled, took over, and bumped his hip gently as she passed by. That's how things were now, shared, imperfect but intentional. They weren't labeling it. They hadn't sat down to declare, "We're together," but they were building something, and it was starting to feel like love. Not the heady, reckless kind, but the kind that unpacked groceries together, that folded laundry during movie nights, that whispered, "I got it," before you even asked. That kind. One Saturday, Stuart invited Liana and Kyla to a community family day, hosted by one of his hotels. There would be games, free food, face painting, and a children's book giveaway. "I'll be working part of the time," he said, "but I'd like you both there." Liana hesitated. "I don't want to feel like some showpiece." "You won't be," he promised. "You'll be exactly what you are, my family." It was the first time he'd said it out loud, and when he saw the way her eyes flicked away, half afraid, half moved, he stepped closer. "You don't have to say it back, but that's how I feel." She nodded. "We'll be there." Kyla had her face painted like a butterfly and ran around the hotel lawn chasing bubbles. Stuart stood behind the prize booth, wearing a branded polo, talking to guests and sneaking glances at his daughter every 2 minutes. Liana sat under a tent, watching it all with a lemonade in hand. When one of Stuart's business partners came over and extended a hand, she braced herself. "You're Liana," he said warmly. "We've heard a lot about you." She raised an eyebrow. "Good things, I hope." "The best," he said. "And Kyla's face is on his phone screen. I think half the staff already calls her the unofficial boss." Liana relaxed a little. Later, when Stuart finally got a break, he sat beside her, sweat at his collar, grinning. "She beat 2 executives in ring toss," he said. "I think she's going to take over Langdon Enterprises by age 10. Liana laughed. He leaned closer. "You've changed me. I didn't set out to." "I know. That's what makes it real." She looked at him. "I'm scared sometimes," she said, "of how easy this feels. I keep waiting for it to fall apart." "Me too," he admitted. "But maybe it won't." She studied him. "Promise me something. Anything. If it ever gets hard, if we argue or things feel messy, don't run." "I won't." "Say it." "I won't run, Liana. Not from you. Not from Kyla. Not from this." She held his eyes, then took his hand. It wasn't a grand moment. No fireworks. No dramatic kiss. Just fingers laced together under a family tent. But it meant everything. That evening, back at her place, Kyla was asleep early, worn out from the sun and excitement. Liana stood by the kitchen sink, drying a glass, while Stuart leaned in the doorway. "You're quiet," he said. "I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop." And it didn't. He walked toward her, placed a hand at her waist. "You okay?" She nodded. "I am." He kissed her cheek, then her temple. "I want you," he whispered. "But only if you want me too." She turned slowly to face him, placing her hands on his chest. "I want what we're building." He kissed her then. This time, there was no hesitation. He lifted her gently, carried her into the bedroom, and laid her down, like something precious, not rushed, not hungry, just full of emotion. Their bodies moved together with trust. They undressed slowly. They smiled. They kissed in between kisses. And when he entered her, she closed her eyes and whispered his name like it was a full sentence. It wasn't about lust. It was about love with memory, with healing, with choice. They didn't say anything when it was over. He pulled her close. She rested her head against his shoulder. He traced lazy circles on her back. And when she finally spoke, her voice was soft. This time, "I don't feel afraid." He kissed her forehead. This time, he said, "You're not alone." The next few weeks moved like music. Soft mornings, shared routines, 3 toothbrushes on the bathroom sink, Kyla's giggles filling the hallway, Stuart's jacket hanging by the front door. It was no longer just her house. It was their home. Stuart made dinner some nights, terribly but with heart. Liana teased him every time, but she always ate it. Kyla called it Daddy's noodles, even though they were really Liana's with a pinch too much garlic. On weekends they did yard sales, story time at the library, and Sunday, morning pancakes, complete with syrup fingerprints on the walls. And for the first time in a long time, Liana wasn't waiting for things to fall apart. She believed it, believed him, until the phone rang. It was a Thursday evening. Liana had just finished placing an online grocery order. Kyla was dancing in front of the TV with Bunny in hand. Stuart stepped out to take a call after glancing at the screen. She didn't think anything of it until 15 minutes passed. Then 20. She opened the front door and found him still standing on the porch, phone down, face unreadable. "Everything okay?" she asked. He looked at her, hesitant, then said, "That was Marcy." Liana's stomach dropped. His ex-wife. "She's in the city," he added, "temporarily. Wants to meet." Liana folded her arms slowly. "Why?" "She says she's heard about Kyla, saw the article, said she didn't know what it stirred in her until now. And she asked if we could talk, face to face. Closure, I guess." Liana nodded slowly, but her expression didn't shift. "You going?" "I told her I'd think about it." "Think about it. I didn't want to say yes without talking to you. Liana's voice stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened. What would you need closure from if you're already free? Stuart sighed, stepped closer. I'm not chasing anything with her. You have to believe that— I want to, she said. But I've been here before, Stuart. I've been the one watching someone walk out to talk and never return. I'm not walking out. You say that now. He paused. What do you want me to do? I want you to ask yourself, if she didn't exist, would this call still matter? He looked down at the floorboards of the porch, silent. Liana didn't press him. She turned and walked back inside. That night, Stuart didn't stay over. Kyla asked why he left early. Liana said he had work, but her heart didn't rest. The next morning, he came back, early, with bagels. Liana opened the door slowly. I didn't meet her, he said without waiting for her to ask. I didn't ask, but I need you to know. I deleted her number after the call. I don't need closure from the past. I already have everything I want in the present. She studied him. You sure? I'm done revisiting empty chapters. Liana let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Don't scare me like that again, she said, voice quieter now. I won't. Inside, Kyla yelled from the hallway. Is that the bagel man? They both laughed. Stuart stepped inside, set the bag on the counter, and pulled Liana into a hug. Not because things were broken, but because love still required tending. That weekend, they took Kyla to a lakeside picnic. No phones, no work, just fresh air, sandwiches, and each other. Kyla napped on Stuart's chest under a blanket, while Liana read a book beside them, her fingers brushing the side of his knee. They were quiet, whole, no perfect bows, no fairy tales, just real life, shared. And this time, it was love that stayed. There's a moment in every blended family when something invisible becomes undeniable. No ceremony, no announcement, just something so simple and raw it makes the truth impossible to ignore. For Stuart, that moment came on a random Tuesday morning. He was pouring cereal for Kyla, badly, while Liana rushed around the living room, trying to find her work badge. Kyla was at the table, feet swinging, singing off-key between bites. Daddy, she said suddenly, if I draw a family, how many people should I draw? Stuart froze, spoon mid-air. Liana paused at the hallway, watching them. He cleared his throat. How many do you want to draw? 3, Kyla said without looking up. Me, you, and Mummy. That's enough, right? Stuart blinked. Slowly. Yeah, baby, that's perfect. She nodded like it was settled. Liana stepped back into the hallway, with her heart thumping louder than her heels. It wasn't just what Kyla said. It was how she said it, like this was her truth, not a guess. Like family wasn't defined by DNA or documents or promises once broken. It was who stayed, who showed up, who poured her cereal and brushed her edges before school. It was them. 3. Later that afternoon, Stuart stopped by a print shop downtown. He brought in a photo Liana had taken 2 weekends ago. Him, Kyla, and Liana sitting on the porch swing. Kyla was in the middle, smiling hard enough to squint one eye. Stuart had his arm resting behind both of them, and Liana's shoulder was touching his. He asked the shop owner to blow it up to 11x14 and frame it in light wood. When he picked it up the next day, he drove straight to Liana's house and knocked on the door. She opened it with a skeptical smile. You're early. I brought something, he said. Is it dinner? Better. She opened the door wider. Kyla ran up behind her. What is it? She asked. He knelt down and flipped the frame to show her. Kyla gasped. That's us. Yep. You, me, and Mummy. Liana folded her arms, speechless. He handed it to Kyla. Where should we hang it? Kyla pointed to the wall between the hallway and the kitchen. Empty, clean, central. Right there. Liana stepped aside, letting Stuart grab a small nail and hammer from the toolbox in the pantry. He hung it gently, adjusted it twice, and stepped back. They stood together, quiet, staring. It wasn't just a photo. It was a declaration, their first picture on the wall as a family. Liana swallowed hard. Looks good there, she said. Looks right, he corrected. Kyla tilted her head. Now everyone will know who I belong to. Stuart crouched beside her. You belong to you, baby girl, but we're lucky we belong with you. That evening, they made spaghetti together in the kitchen. Kyla wore her apron. Stuart stirred the sauce. Liana made salad and side eyes at both of them whenever they added too much garlic. The house smelled like comfort, like something built. After dinner, while Kyla drew in the living room, Stuart and Liana sat at the table, drinking tea. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For not rushing me. I'm not here for speed. I'm here for the long haul. Liana studied him. And what does that look like to you? He leaned forward. Waking up with you every morning, packing lunches, kissing you when you're mad at me, picking up our daughter from school dances, growing old without ever wondering if I should have done more. Her hands were wrapped around her mug, but she didn't drink. I used to think love like that wasn't for me, she said. And now? She glanced toward the hallway where their photo hung. Now I'm scared of how much I want it. He reached out, resting his fingers lightly over hers. Don't be scared. I've got you, and if I fall apart one day, I'll be there to hold the pieces. She blinked slowly. You make it sound easy. It's not, he said, but it's worth it. They didn't kiss, not yet, but she didn't pull her hand away either. That was enough. The next morning, Kyla pointed at the photo on the wall before heading to school. Mummy, we need another one with Bunny in it. Liana laughed. Next time, Stuart lifted her into his arms and kissed her cheek. I think we need a whole wall. Liana raised an eyebrow. Slow down, Langdon. He grinned. I meant it. More pictures, more memories. We're just getting started. As they walked out the door together, Kyla in the middle, swinging their hands, Liana thought to herself, maybe we are. It was a calm Friday morning when Stuart brought up something that had been resting on his chest for weeks. They were on Liana's porch again. Kyla was at daycare, and the silence between them was comfortable until he broke it. I want to make it legal. Liana looked up from her cup. What do you mean? I want my name on her birth certificate. I want to be recognized, not just in presence, but on paper. Liana's jaw tensed slightly. He noticed, not to take anything from you. I just want what's already real, acknowledged. Liana looked away, breathing slowly. You've never overstepped. That means something, she said. I'd never go behind your back. I'll only do what you allow. But she's my daughter, Liana. I didn't get to be there when she was born. I want to be there for every part of her future. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no either. She simply said, let's think it through. The next day, Liana walked into her kitchen and paused. Stuart had drawn up some paperwork, not to file, but to review with her. Nothing legal yet. Just intentions, a document outlining that he wanted to share parental rights, be part of decision-making, and ensure Kyla had access to his inheritance without contest. It was handwritten. Nothing formal. No lawyer talk. Just Stuart's promises in ink. At the bottom, he'd scribbled, "This isn't to claim you. It's to protect her. You both are my heart. And I want the world to know it." Liana stared at it for a long time. Her heart swelled, a lump pressing behind her throat. That night, she placed it in a drawer, next to Kyla's ultrasound photo. She still hadn't decided. But she was closer than ever to trust. On Sunday, they visited a park near Midtown. A family picnic event was happening. Kyla ran around with other kids, face painted like a butterfly, while Stuart helped grill hot dogs. That's when a voice sliced through the music. Well, this is new, Liana tuned sharply. A tall, silver-haired woman in a cream coat stood near the picnic table. Sunglasses perched on her head, a cold half, smile on her lips. "Mom," Stuart said, stepping forward, clearly caught off guard. Liana's face froze. His mother? Cecilia Langdon was known across the city for her philanthropy, her power, and her razor-sharp opinions. Liana straightened up, but didn't smile. Stuart moved to intercept. "I didn't expect you here," he said. "I came to donate. Cecilia replied, glancing at Liana. But I see you've made additions to your life. Her tone was coated in polite venom. Stuart shifted. This is Liana Brooks. And that little girl with the glitter shoes? That's Kyla, my daughter. Cecilia arched one brow. And this is how you tell me. I didn't think I owed you an announcement, he said. Cecilia looked at Liana again, slowly. You're the woman from the papers, aren't you? Catering fundraisers, soup kitchens. You run Kyla's kitchen? Yes, ma'am, Liana said, steady but firm. Cecilia let out a dry chuckle. I suppose everyone's rebuilding these days. Liana blinked but said nothing. Stuart stepped closer to his mother. If you came to insult her, you can leave. I came to understand, Cecilia said. But clearly, I'm late. She turned and walked off, heels clicking on the path like gavel strikes. Stuart's jaw clenched. I'm sorry, he told Liana. But Liana didn't flinch. You handled it. That's what matters. Still, the air had shifted. That night, Stuart sat on Liana's porch, elbows on his knees, watching Kyla draw with sidewalk chalk. I should have warned you about her, he muttered. You didn't need to. She's always been sharp. My ex never got her approval. I guess I hoped things would be different. Liana tilted her head. You mean with me? I mean with the person I actually love. He looked up at her. I'm not them, she said. I know. That's why I want to do this right. There was a long pause. Then she asked, would it matter if she didn't approve? Only if you didn't, he said. 2 days later, Cecilia called Liana. Not Stuart. Liana. She invited her for tea. Liana nearly didn't go, but something told her, better to face the mountain than let it grow. She showed up at the Langdon estate wearing a navy blue wrap dress and flat shoes. No makeup, no performance. Cecilia greeted her with stillness. No hug, just an evaluating stare. They sat. I won't waste your time, Cecilia said. I raised my son with high expectations. He's made many mistakes. But I've never seen him commit to something like this. Liana nodded. Because this isn't something, it's someone. Our daughter. Cecilia sipped her tea. She's bright. She has his eyes. She has my stubbornness, Liana added. Cecilia almost smiled. You're not like the women I feared he'd fall for. And what did you fear? Gold diggers, socialites, shallow opportunists. Well, Liana said, I have none of the gold and zero time for digging. That made Cecilia chuckle, genuinely this time. I wanted to hate you, she confessed. But I don't. Liana stood. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to protect my daughter. If Stuart wants to build a home with us, it'll be because he's earned it, not because I need anything. Cecilia stood too. Good. Then I trust you'll teach him how. That evening, Stuart waited anxiously on the porch. When Liana returned, she didn't say much. She just walked up, handed him a folded paper, and sat beside him. He unfolded it. It was a clean version of the document he'd written weeks ago. Signed by her. Liana spoke without looking at him. If you're going to be on her birth certificate, it won't just be ink. It'll be hours, days, sleepless nights, field trips, hard talks, ballet recitals, tantrums, first dates, everything. I know, and I'll never let her feel abandoned. Ever. Neither will I, he whispered. Then it's time, she said. He blinked back something thick in his throat. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she added, smirking slightly. We've got work to do. He took her hand. No, we've got forever to do it. It started with a camera. Not the fancy kind with buttons and flash, but Kyla's tiny plastic one, pink with glitter, stickers peeling off. She ran around the living room, snapping pretend photos and yelling, "Smile for the frame!" Liana laughed as she stirred spaghetti on the stove. Baby, you can't take pictures without batteries. Kyla stuck her tongue out. Mummy, it's in my head. I already see the photo. Stuart looked up from the couch, grinning. Creative director, already. She spun toward him. Daddy, stand next to Mummy. Why? He asked, standing anyway. Kyla pointed her toy camera. Because you love her. And when people love each other, they belong in the same frame. Liana and Stuart froze. Kyla blinked. Did I say something wrong? Liana knelt, brushing a curl off Kyla's cheek. No, honey, that's the smartest thing I've heard all day. Stuart took a slow breath. That moment lingered in his mind, longer than it should have. That night, after Kyla was tucked in, he sat outside with Liana under the porch light. She's growing up fast, he said. She is, and she sees more than we think. He leaned into her side. She's not the only one. Liana tilted her head toward him. What do you mean? Stuart ran his fingers through his hair. I see it now. What I nearly missed. The kind of love that isn't wrapped in champagne or hotel rooms. The kind that waits and forgives and builds something new. Her eyes softened, but she didn't speak. I want to show you something, he said. The next day, he invited her and Kyla to the art gallery downtown. Liana raised an eyebrow. Since when do you like art? Since I found a reason to make some, he said. The gallery was clean and intimate, with soft music and white walls. Near the back was a private room marked Langdon Family Collection. Inside, 5 canvas photos hung. The first was a shot of Midtown at night, city lights glistening, taxis racing through puddles. The second showed a white porch swing under a summer sky. The third was a child's glittered shoes on a welcome mat. The fourth? Liana's hands holding Kyla's tiny ones at the hospital during a checkup. And the fifth? A candid black and white portrait of Liana and Stuart, her in an apron, laughing, his eyes only on her. Above them, etched in silver frame, the frame that fits, Liana stared. You did this? He nodded. Hired a documentary photographer. Been building this for 6 months. She turned slowly, stunned. I wanted something real. A frame full of truth. No filters, no edits. Kyla ran to the portrait. That's my mommy. Stuart kneeled, picked her up. And that's your family, Peanut. Liana's eyes brimmed. Why go through all this? He pulled out a small black box. Inside was a vintage silver locket. No diamond, no grand speech. Just a note inside, you gave me her. Now let me give you all of me. Liana covered her mouth. I didn't buy a ring, Stuart said softly, because I didn't want to bind you with something expensive. I wanted to offer something honest, a chance to say yes, not because you have to, but because you feel safe again. Silence. Then Kyla asked, Mommy, is that like when people get married? Liana looked at Stuart, then at their daughter, then back at Stuart. Yes, she whispered. It's exactly like that. They didn't rush down an aisle. There were no flower petals or tuxedos. Instead, the 3 of them stood in that quiet gallery, holding hands beneath a portrait of their everyday life. Kyla said, Now kiss her, Daddy. Liana giggled through her tears. You heard the boss. He leaned in, lips brushing hers in a kiss that wasn't wild, but deep, home. When they broke apart, Stuart whispered, You gave me 2 frames. You and Kyla, she whispered back. And you gave us a life where we finally fit. The sun was soft that day, not blinding, not dramatic, just enough to warm the breeze and light up the petals of the wildflowers surrounding the lake. There were no guests in tuxedos, no bridesmaids or planners, just a simple arch made of driftwood, a narrow rug rolled out over grass, and a small group of souls who mattered. Kyla stood at the front, in a white sundress, holding a small bouquet she picked herself. They're daisies and dandelions, she had whispered, because Mommy always said weeds are just flowers with bad press. Stuart stood a few feet away in a navy shirt and slacks, no tie, just a calm expression, and his eyes fixed on the small cabin path behind them. From the trees, Liana appeared. No wedding gown, no veil, just a soft peach dress that hugged her in all the right ways and made her glow. Her hair was pinned up with a few curls spilling down her neck, and in her hands she held the same locket Stuart had given her. She walked slowly, with no one on her arm, until Stuart met her halfway. He held out his hand, not saying a word. She placed hers in his. We're walking the rest together, she said. And they did. They stood before a justice of the peace who didn't bother with lengthy speeches. He simply looked at them and asked, "Why are you here today?" Stuart turned first, "Because I walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me." But she still opened the door again. "This time, I won't take one step without her." Then Liana said, "Because I thought love was something that disappeared in storms. But this love stayed, even after the water dried." The officiant smiled. "That's all I need." Rings were simple, gold, engraved inside with Kyla's name. As they exchanged them, Kyla shouted, "Don't forget to kiss." The small gathering laughed. Liana leaned in and kissed Stuart slow and full, like she finally exhaled after years of holding her breath. Applause came not from a crowd, but from a few people who had become pillars. Stuart's assistant, Nolan, Liana's boss from the diner, her childhood friend May, and Kyla's daycare teacher. It was small, but it was everything. Later that evening, after cake and music and dancing barefoot in the grass, they sat on the porch swing outside their new home. Kyla was inside with her favorite book, the one Stuart had read to her every night for weeks before this day. Liana leaned into Stuart's chest, the swing rocking gently beneath them. "You know," she said, "I never imagined I'd end up here. Not with you. Not like this." "I did," he whispered. "You did?" "After that first night. The way you listened. The way you didn't try to impress me or seduce me. Just sat there and made me feel seen. I went home and dreamed of you for weeks. You never said that before. I was ashamed. I left like a coward, thought it was the right thing to do." She touched his hand. "We both thought we were doing the right thing. Doesn't mean it wasn't wrong." He nodded slowly. "But look where we are." She smiled. "Yeah, look." A light flicked on inside. Kyla pressed her face to the window, smiling wide, holding a picture frame. It was the portrait from the gallery, the one where Liana and Stuart were laughing, unaware they were being photographed. Kyla held it up and mouthed, "I love this one." Liana watched through the glass. "She gets it, you know." "Gets what?" "That love doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to stay." Stuart kissed her temple. "And I'm not going anywhere." They had built a small life. No mansions, no servants. Just a cozy home with a garden, a shared bank account, and fridge magnets shaped like hearts. Stuart still ran his business, but he turned down 3 major contracts to stay closer to home. Liana opened a storefront version of Kyla's kitchen, named after their daughter's imagination. It sold cupcakes, soups, and that famous honey cornbread. They were still learning each other. He snored. She kicked in her sleep. He liked steak. She preferred tofu, but they laughed more than they argued. And when they did fight, they never slept angry. One night, after closing the shop, Liana found Stuart and Kyla asleep on the living room floor, surrounded by drawings. He had fallen asleep helping her design the new cafe logo. She stared for a moment, his arm around her, her head on his chest. She took a photo. Later, she printed it and placed it in the frame above the fireplace. When Stuart woke up the next morning, he stared at it in awe. "What's this one called?" he asked. Liana handed him a sticky note. He read aloud, "The frame after all the others." She smiled. "Because love isn't built in a single moment. It's framed, one quiet day at a time." Stuart looked at her. "I love you. I love you too." And across the room, Kyla whispered in her sleep, "Smile for the frame." If this story moved you, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, quiet love, and the beauty of building something real. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that feel like home.